Am I wrong for telling my ex to stop giving my daughter lunch money? I have a daughter, Emily, 16 female, with my ex. She chose to live with my ex and his wife and kids the majority of the time because she has to share her room with her stepsister Laura, 15, at my house. My ex gives Emily $25 a week to buy lunch. Emily's and Laura's school is down the street from a lot of restaurants, so instead of buying school lunches, she leaves campus to buy herself and her friends lunch. Okay, I don't see the problem here. The problem is she sees Laura at school and won't get her anything even though she gets her friends lunch all the time. Why should she do that? I talked to Emily about it and she said it's because her friends pay her back and Laura can't. Valid point. I agree. Emily knows we can't afford to give Laura that kind of money, and I know she works part-time and gets an extra allowance from her dad, so I asked her to occasionally buy Laura lunch to make her feel better. She refused. I called her dad and hoped that as a parent he'd understand what I was trying to do, but he said Laura's feelings are not his or Emily's responsibility, and that if she wants to buy lunch off campus, she should get a part-time job like Emily. Facts. I tried to explain that Laura is in sports and she has ADHD and depression, so it would be hard for her to work, but he said that's mine and my husband's problem and hung up. What? You don't try to hold a pity party, okay? Laura came back home the other day crying because Emily came back with food from her favorite restaurant and didn't give her anything or offer to share. So I called my ex and told him that he needs to stop giving Emily lunch money and have her make her own lunches because she was hurting Laura. What? Why are you being so inconsiderate of your daughter's feelings? Like, I get they're both your kids, but what? He refused to listen to me and told Emily that I'm telling him not to let her go out to lunch because of Laura, and Emily hasn't spoken to me except to say that she's going to stay at her dad's full time for a while. Poor girl. Like, you cannot force relationships onto people. Like, would I be the asshole if I didn't buy a new engagement ring? For 5 years now, I, male 26, have been in love with the love of my life, female 25. I cannot express how much I love her and how important she is to me. Oh my gosh. I knew I wanted to marry her shortly after getting together. We're finally financially stable enough, so I decided now is the time. In 2020, my girlfriend lost her grandmother. They were super close and it hit my girlfriend hard, especially because she couldn't have a last goodbye in the hospital due to COVID restrictions. In early 2021, my girlfriend helped her sister move houses. She was wearing a ring her grandmother gave her before she passed and lost it while carrying boxes. This had hit her even more, and even now she will still sometimes cry about this because she feels like she lost the last memory of her grandmother. We had looked for the ring but hadn't found it. On Christmas, my girlfriend had cried again because she missed her grandmother and laminated the loss of the ring. This gave me an idea. She spent the weekend of New Year's Eve with a friend, so I contacted her sister and asked if I could search her house once again for the ring. When I mentioned that I want to use the ring to propose, she was super excited. She, her husband, and my girlfriend's mother, who loved the idea as well, helped me, and eventually we found the ring between some boxes in her garage. Oh my god, yay! I love this idea. That's actually super fucking sentimental and sweet. What the heck? I'm planning on proposing on the 14th, which is the anniversary of our first date, and we always go out to do something nice then. I had mentioned it to my friends who were excited for me, but they had asked about what ring I got, and I told them the story. They called me a cheapskate for not buying my girlfriend a new ring. They also said that it's not an engagement ring. I mean, it really doesn't look like an engagement ring because it isn't. It's a normal silver ring with an amethyst stone. My girlfriend struggled with anxiety, and her grandmother got her one because apparently those stones help with anxiety. They also said it's an asshole move to use the ring someone else paid for as an engagement ring. One friend also brought up that by connecting the ring to our engagement, I might taint its original meaning. Oh, I didn't think like that. Maybe they have a point. Now I don't feel so confident about this anymore. I thought that since the ring has a lot of meaning to her, it might be a good engagement ring. My girlfriend even jokingly said she would be okay with the candy ring because it's the symbolism that counts and not the ring itself. Now I think girls just say that just to be nice and not sound like bitchy, but you better not get no girl, no candy ring, okay? But now I'm scared I really might come up as a cheapskate and she might not want the ring as an engagement ring, but just normal jewelry. So would I be the asshole here? Okay, no, here's the thing. I think it's a very, very sweet idea to propose with the ring. You should also, I think, have a backup ring, or when you propose to her, tell her like, I know I found this for you, but I want to go take you. If you don't want this, I want to go get you an engagement ring and help you pick it out. I think that's a good balance of it.
Story time about how my boyfriend forces me to follow his rules in order to be his girlfriend. Disclaimers is not my story time. I said me on Instagram. We've been together for 2 years now. I feel like everyone says this, but the relationship was really good at the beginning. For the first 6 months, everything was totally fine. We had a lot of fun together. We would go out on double dates with all of our friends. We even started our own business together. After he asked me to move in with him is when everything became a nightmare. A little backstory on him. His parents didn't really care about his hygiene or their house when he was growing up. He tells me that his house was really messy, that their house was never taken care of, and that his mom is pretty much a hoarder. Now, Now, I don't know if any of this is true because he doesn't speak to his parents anymore, so I'm assuming that it is. He told me that as a kid, he used to feel really ashamed of people coming over to his house and that he would always be cleaning up after his parents. As you can imagine, now that he's an adult, he controls everything around him. His apartment is perfect. He lives in a high-rise and his apartment is beautiful. I should say our apartment, but everything is always clean and perfect. And if it's not like that, he gets in a really bad mood. I'm talking super angry. He's never become physical, but sometimes I think he wants to. This is when the rules started. Part 2 is up. Part 2 of how my boyfriend forces me to follow his rules in order to be his girlfriend. Disclaimers is not my story time, instead of me on Instagram. After I moved in with him and realized how much of a clean freak he is, he started implementing some rules. At first, he just said it very casually. For example, he asked me not to touch his clothes. In other words, he never wanted me to do his laundry or even fold them for him. When I went into his closet, he had a very meticulous way of putting everything away. All of his drawers were labeled. He had specific mugs for coffee. By mistake, I used a different type of mug and he actually threw that mug away. He said that it was probably going to get stained and there was no point in keeping it. When I asked him why he was so specific about all these things, he told me his anxiety would act up if I didn't do these things. So I did exactly what he wanted me to do. After a few weeks of me moving in, he handed me this booklet. In it, he had typed out all of the house rules, also a section that said girlfriend rules. For example, he didn't like me wearing short skirts. He didn't like me having long nails. He didn't like when I wore my hair in a bun. Also, if we were out with people, he would only let me sit on his left side because that's his better side. After a few days of me trying to follow the rules, I accidentally broke one. I forgot to use a coaster on the coffee table and he ended up kicking me out that day. Part 3 is up. Part 3 of how my boyfriend forces me to follow his rules in order to be his girlfriend. Disclaimer is not my story time, I sent me on Instagram. After he kicked me out for not using a coaster of all things, I went straight to my parents' house. When I told my parents about the booklet, they thought he was legitimately crazy. A few days later, he begged me to go back and I did. He even added new things to the list. For example, I have to clean the air fryer every single time I use it. There can be no dirty dishes in the kitchen at any time. And when it comes to the girlfriend rules, he bought me a perfume that he really likes and I hate it. But I can't say no to wearing it because he gets angry. He also doesn't want me bringing any of my friends over. My best friend forgot to recycle a pizza box the last time she was at our place, and ever since then he talks trash about her. I know I should leave him, but I still do love him, and I really think that he needs help. But I have started looking for my own apartment. I live by those stupid rules and I'm terrified of breaking one. My hair has even started falling out because of it. What should I do?
Am I wrong for announcing my pregnancy during my family's white elephant game? I, female 24, am currently pregnant. I waited to tell everyone, including my boyfriend, male 25, knowing that I would reach the second trimester just in time for Christmas. I thought it was a perfect gift, and I was relatively symptom-free. We, my parents, and my siblings, and their spouses plan to get together Christmas Eve in order to celebrate. Every year, we hold a white elephant gift as a fun event for the evening. The spending minimum is $40, but I figured the reveal of the first grandchild would be a priceless gift. I wrapped and framed my first ultrasound and I hid it until the party. My boyfriend and I usually play as one person instead of two to avoid buying two $40 gifts, so I had planned to grab my own gift and open it for everyone to see. Since only 7 of us were playing, I figured my chances of getting a low number were pretty good, so I could grab the gift first. I even wrapped it ugly on purpose so that no one else would be tempted to go for it. Somehow, I ended up with the worst luck and drew a 5. I started to get a little nervous, but figured that even if someone else opened the gift, it would be okay. My brother-in-law Ryan, 32 male, drew a number lower than me and grabbed the present. We are not super close, but I figured once everyone saw what it was, I would just announce it. But the second he lifted the lid, he burst into tears. Oh my god, he thinks it's his wife's! I was so confused. My name was right on the ultrasound and everything, although in small text. I saw my parents' faces twist into joy as they looked at my sister, Beth, 31 female, who was just confused. Once she saw what it was, she turned super red and looked at me and my 2 other sisters. She looked super embarrassed as she told him that it did not belong to her. I stood up, a bit nervous by the environment, and announced that it belonged to me. My parents' expressions completely fell. My brother-in-law asked if we could take a break from the game. I had no idea what was wrong. My boyfriend felt so uncomfortable that we left immediately afterwards without even finishing the game. My boyfriend told me I should have told him in private, and I was an asshole for putting him on the spot. The next day, my mother and sister texted me to tell me I should not have used our family game for this when my sister is struggling to conceive. Oh, you didn't say that part. I had no idea she was going through that. Oh, just kidding, you didn't know. I just wanted to share the news with my family on our favorite holiday. It's been weeks and no one has reached out to me. So, am I the asshole? Aw, this sucks. No, I think you had good intentions. This sucks. I feel so sorry. Wait. You waited your whole first trimester, waited till your second trimester, and you still didn't tell your baby daddy? That's the fucked up part. I don't think the game was the fucked up part. I think you should have given your boyfriend the heads up. Just my opinion, you know.
Storytime about how my asshole boyfriend criticizes everything I wear. Disclaimer's not my storytime. My boyfriend and I have been dating for 6 months. We're both pretty young. I'm 19 and he's 22. I could say that he's just young and he doesn't know how to treat a woman yet, but he's pretty immature in everything else. Now you might wonder why I'm with him. It's because I love him. I met him when I was 15 in high school and I've been in love with him ever since. He always used to tell me that I was too young for him, but finally when I turned 18, he started paying attention to me. I begged him to go on a date with me and he finally said yes. At first, everything was so amazing. He was fun, charismatic, and super affectionate. When he finally asked me to be his girlfriend, I was so happy. But then slowly he started criticizing everything I wear. He doesn't like when I wear hoodies or sweaters, leggings or pants, skirts that are too short, skirts that are too loose, or crop tops. First he would politely say things, but now he's just straight up mean about it. He told me when I'm around him I can wear skimpy clothes, but when we go out he wants me to wear stuff that's loose. So I literally changed everything I wore. I dressed only for him and I started hating myself. Part 2 of how my boyfriend criticizes everything I wear. Disclaimers are not my story time, send me on Instagram. I completely changed the way I dress just for him. He would always find something to criticize, even down to the jewelry or hair accessories or makeup that I wore. It got to the point where if I went shopping, I would send him pictures of the stuff that I wanted to buy for him to approve. Even my nails. Anytime I went to the nail salon, I would have to send him pictures of the nail polish or any designs I wanted to do. And don't think that he's paying for stuff. No, he's not. I finally opened up to my mom and told her everything. She told my dad and they both got really upset. My dad even called my boyfriend and told him to come over. My parents told him to stop being so controlling, otherwise the relationship would be over. Of course, my boyfriend pretended to be on his best behavior, apologized and said that he wouldn't do it anymore. But when we left my parents' house, he told me I was a snitch. Then he made me promise to never tell my parents anything about our relationship again. And I know I should just break up with him, but I do love him. I've been in love with him for years and now that I'm with him, I don't want to lose him. But I know that I've put him up on a pedestal. It's been a few weeks since my parents intervened, but my boyfriend hasn't changed a thing. I decided to buy myself a designer purse that I've been wanting for years. As soon as he saw me with the purse, he said that my privilege was showing and that I needed to go return it as soon as possible because it was embarrassing. Part 3 is up. Part 3 of how my boyfriend criticizes everything I wear. Disclaimers is not my story time. I sent me on Instagram. After he told me to return the designer purse, I said no. He then explained to me why I should be embarrassed to wear it. He said people that buy designer stuff are only trying to flaunt their wealth, and that people who do that are just trying to cover up their shortcomings. So basically, I'm trying to hide the fact that I'm not good at other things, or that I don't have good qualities. I couldn't believe what he was saying to me. For the first time ever, I defended myself and I told him he needed to leave me alone. And no, I didn't return the purse, and I'm not trying to flaunt my wealth either. So here's what I did. I started returning all the clothes that I bought just to wear for him, and the ones he wants me to wear in front of other people. When he saw me again, he told me that I looked terrible. He said no one would take me seriously in my outfit with my designer purse. So I drove him back to his house because no, he doesn't have a car, and I've been ignoring his calls and messages for 4 days. My plan is to start treating him the way he treated me. I'm gonna control and criticize everything he wears and see how he likes it. I think this is gonna make things better. I don't want to break up with him because I do love him. What do you guys think?
Am I the asshole for hiding the soda? I feel ridiculous for even posting this, but I need objective eyes on this. Background: 1 husband, 2 stepkids, 15 male, 17 male. Married 5 years. We keep separate financial accounts if that makes a difference, and we alternate who buys groceries week to week. Anyways, here's the deal. I don't drink coffee. I drink Mountain Dew or the occasional energy drink for my morning caffeine kick. My husband and the oldest stepson are both coffee drinkers. With increasing frequency, I'll go to grab a drink out of the fridge and all of the soda and energy drinks are gone. The kids have taken to coming home and grabbing 2 to 3 or more sodas, and before they left for their mom's house last week, the 15-year-old was actually packing a 6-pack into his backpack to go. The obvious solution, I thought, was to buy more soda. Yes, I know it's awful for the kids, but if their dad isn't stopping them from sucking down junk food, it's not my deal to intervene. Good point for you. Yes, you are correct. Nope, still gone to where I look for the fridge for one single much-needed energy boost and nada. So I started asking my husband to pick up soda or a few energy drinks on his grocery shopping week to supplement. His response was that he's not wasting money on garbage like that and to complain about how expensive things like Mountain Dew are these days. Then tell your kids to stop drinking hers. Simple. Like, okay, you don't buy it, fine, don't buy it, but tell your kids not to take your wife's shit. Next tactic was to ask that if the kids drink the soda, that they please leave a few behind if it's obvious we're almost out, so I have at least 1 or 2 when I go to grab one. This is where things took a turn for the worse. My husband got irritated and said that I was policing the food, and that no one who lives here should have to ask permission to eat or drink. Really, dude? You gonna pull that shit? Ugh. Fine. I figured if I wanted to have a Mountain Dew or energy drink for myself, I would just put a little mini fridge in my office and stash a few in there. I got a tiny fridge that holds a 6-pack and pops a few in there. I put the cases I buy in my office and put a week's worth in the main fridge at a time so they last until I shop again. Okay, so you're putting some, like 6 in your own little fridge and you're still putting a pack in the big fridge. Yesterday, the 15-year-old complained that there hadn't been Mountain Dew in the fridge for a few days, and my husband grumpily said, "Go get them from your stepmom's office. She's hiding food and snacks from you guys in there." What a piece of shit. At this point, I put my foot down and said I'm hanging on to some of the drinks that I like every week because otherwise I don't get any. And if everyone else drank what I put in the fridge for them before I shopped again and my husband didn't want to buy any himself, That's just too bad. My husband still refuses to buy the soda himself, but is convinced I'm being a complete and total jerk because I'm hiding what I purchased. Am I being completely oblivious to my own asshole behavior here, or is this as lopsided as I think it is? Nah, your husband's psycho. What the heck? He's not wasting money on garbage, but he's perfectly happy for you to spend your money and not even drink your own soda. So, nah, get out of here. Am I wrong for not inviting my adoptive parents to my wedding? I, 30 female, am getting married to my fiance in May. I was adopted when I was a baby, and my adopted parents in their 50s did their best to raise me and support me through college. We always had a good relationship, and I obviously love them. When I was 23, I decided to search for my biological parents, and long story short, they were teenagers, 14 when they had me. They were still together and they have 2 more children. They said they wanted to keep me, but they couldn't raise me, so they decided to put me up for adoption. The thing that really hurt me was that in my childhood and teenage years, they tried to contact my adoptive parents and have a relationship with me, but my adoptive parents refused. When I confronted my adoptive parents, they said that they were afraid that I might prefer my biological parents, so they tried to keep them away. No, why would you do that? I was hurt and disappointed and decided to go low contact. Over the years, we managed to build a better relationship, but it's not like before. So, for my wedding, I decided to ask my biological father to walk me down the aisle, and he obviously said yes. Oh, that must, what is it called? Stake in the heart. When my adoptive parents learned this, they were hurt and said that their worst fear had come to reality, and if I insist to put my biological parents before them, then I shouldn't invite them to the wedding. Oh my God, I kind of get their point. I'm not saying you should invite both, but I don't know. This is sticky. I talked to them and suggested that both dads could walk me down the aisle. My adoptive parents refused because they said that they did all the hard work and they shouldn't have to share the spot. I told them I will give them a couple of days to think about it. My answer was that they're not invited then. Since then, all my adoptive families are calling me an asshole. So, am I the asshole here? I feel for your adoptive parents because you're raising a child as your own just for them to be older and be like, you know what? Fuck you, I'm gonna go find my real parents. But they shouldn't have held that information from you at the same time. But they raised you. Just because they're not your parents by blood doesn't make them your parents, right? I don't know. Just my opinion.
Storytime about how I'm still engaged after 16 years. My fiance asked me to marry him when I was 20 years old and I am now 36. It's been that long. Disclaimer, this is not my storytime of sending me an Instagram. Let's call my fiance Ted. Ted is a great guy, aside from the fact that he pushes back our wedding day all the time. A little backstory. We are both very career-driven people. We both work very hard and travel for our jobs. He works on Wall Street and I work for a beauty conglomerate. We're very wealthy, so we could be having kids right now if we wanted to. But of course, he says that we should wait until we get married. Every time I bring up the fact that we still haven't gotten married after 16 years, he gets annoyed and upset. Worst of all, we barely spend time together because we both work so much. Have to interrupt. This foundation is amazing, you guys. Where are my pores? It's from the brand M Assam Beauty and it is cruelty free. I don't think my skin has ever looked this good in makeup. Back to the story. I started getting really suspicious because of how many times he's pushed back the wedding. So I decided to do some research. When we first got engaged, he told me the ring was worth $45,000. I got it appraised and it turns out it's a fake ring and it's only worth $200. Part 2 is up. Part 2 of how I'm still engaged after 16 years. After I found out the ring was fake, I came up with a plan to confront my fiance. I made sure to get home earlier than he did. When he came into the apartment, I was standing right by our balcony. He comes over to me and gives me a kiss. Then I take off the engagement ring and I throw it over the balcony. He pretended like he was freaking out. That's when I told him I got the ring appraised and that it was a fake, and that it was only worth $200 instead of the $45,000 he told me he spent. The man was too stunned to speak. I could tell he was trying to come up with some lie in his head, so I gave him a minute to think. Then he says that he bought the ring from a friend who was a jeweler, and that he must have scammed him out of the $45,000. After 45 minutes of arguing, I was exhausted. I decided to go to sleep. I woke up a few hours later and I overhear him on the phone. That's when I heard him say she knows that the ring is fake and I think she knows about us. Part 3 is up. This palette is also from Amazon Beauty and it's cruelty free. These shadows blend like a dream. Go to part 3. Part 3 of how I'm still engaged after 16 years. That's when I hear my fiance on the phone saying, I think she knows about us. My heart sank to my stomach. I stood there and listened to the rest of the conversation. He was whispering, so it was hard to make out. All I could hear was, I'll have to tell her the truth now. I went back to our room and pretended to be asleep. He comes in and wakes me up and tells me that he has to talk to me. That's when he starts telling me everything. He said when he asked me to marry me, he had every intention of doing so. But the more he traveled, the further he felt away from me. That's when he told me he met someone in his travels, and that he'd been seeing this woman for 10 years. He even had a house with her in a different city. It turns out that every time he would travel, it was only to see her. My world was completely shattered. Worst of all is that he was so happy after he told me. He moved out that week and now I am totally alone. I gave him the best years of my life and my time was totally wasted. I feel like he should be punished for this, but I don't think he broke any laws. What should I do? The mascara and lip balm are also from Amazon Beauty. How good does my skin look? Bye!
Am I wrong for telling my ex to stop giving my daughter lunch money? I have a daughter, Emily, 16 female, with my ex. She chose to live with my ex and his wife and kids the majority of the time because she has to share her room with her stepsister Laura, 15, at my house. My ex gives Emily $25 a week to buy lunch. Emily's and Laura's school is down the street from a lot of restaurants, so instead of buying school lunches, she leaves campus to buy herself and her friends lunch. Okay, I don't see the problem here. The problem is she sees Laura at school and won't get her anything even though she gets her friends lunch all the time. Why should she do that? I talked to Emily about it and she said it's because her friends pay her back and Laura can't. Valid point. I agree. Emily knows we can't afford to give Laura that kind of money, and I know she works part-time and gets an extra allowance from her dad, so I asked her to occasionally buy Laura lunch to make her feel better. She refused. I called her dad and hoped that as a parent he'd understand what I was trying to do, but he said Laura's feelings are not his or Emily's responsibility, and that if she wants to buy lunch off campus, she should get a part-time job like Emily. Facts. I tried to explain that Laura is in sports and she has ADHD and depression, so it would be hard for her to work, but he said that's mine and my husband's problem and hung up. What? You don't try to hold a pity party, okay? Laura came back home the other day crying because Emily came back with food from her favorite restaurant and didn't give her anything or offer to share. So I called my ex and told him that he needs to stop giving Emily lunch money and have her make her own lunches because she was hurting Laura. Why are you being so inconsiderate of your daughter's feelings? Like, I get they're both your kids, but what? He refused to listen to me and told Emily that I'm telling him not to let her go out to lunch because of Laura, and Emily hasn't spoken to me except to say that she's going to stay at her dad's full time for a while. Poor girl. Like, you cannot force relationships onto people. Like,
am I the asshole for watching and doing nothing to help my husband when he was extremely ill? My 27 female husband, Tim, 36 male, has a serious dairy allergy. I'm talking about an actual immune system reaction, not intolerance. I work full time and also have some seasonal work this holiday season because Tim has been without work and money has been very tight. As a result, I barely get to rest. The holidays are especially hard and I found myself getting just one day off every 2 weeks for almost 2 months straight.
Damn.
As you can imagine, that day off means the universe to me. Now, Tim loves dairy and will sometimes intentionally eat things which trigger his allergy. Lately, it's gotten out of hand. In fact, it always seemed to coincidentally line up with my time off, and I found myself spending my one day taking care of him. Last week, I finally asked him if he was intentionally timing it to line up with my day off. I fully expected him to say no, but he admitted that he was doing it to make sure that he'd have a nurse, and so he'd have someone close by in case he had an especially adverse reaction and needed a hospital. I was livid. I said that if he made himself sick again, I wouldn't take care of him. He didn't say much, so I thought he'd heard me. Fast forward to Friday night. I get home from work, and a few minutes in, Tim gets a pizza delivered. I ask him why when I'm making dinner, and he shrugs. I ask if a large garlic Alfredo pizza is worth the pain, and remind him that I won't be giving up my rest day again. He smirks and eats an entire slice while grinning at me. I left it at that and went back to my dinner. Predictably, he got sick, profusely vomiting, retching, and groaning from the intense cramping and diarrhea. I slept in the guest room to get away from the sound and smell. He called for me several times, and I repeatedly told him no. Hours later, he was still sick and woke me up at the crack of dawn to go get him Pedialyte and meds because he was so dehydrated and still in pain. I told him to order it in and asked him to get out and let me sleep. He was still whimpering when I eventually got up to shower and eat. Again, I did nothing to help or comfort him. By morning, when I had to go to work, he was enraged. He yelled, and by the end of the day, he told our friends and family that he nearly died, and I neglected him. His family accused me of passively trying to kill him. His mom called, shouting that he could have had a life-threatening reaction due to my petty actions, and that I'm a shit wife for not minding his health. I'm starting to feel guilty because she's right, and he could have been seriously hurt. Am I the asshole?
I'm 30 and my girlfriend, 27, is Indian. She moved to the US a few years back. I'm American, white, if that matters, and we live in North Carolina. My girlfriend loves to cook. She told me so on our first date. However, I'm not the biggest fan of Indian food. I found that a lot of spices used in Indian food irritate my stomach, and I have a very low tolerance for hot and spicy foods. She's never had an issue with this and never forced me to eat anything I didn't want to. In fact, whenever I stayed over, she made me things like pancakes and French toast, and they were incredible. She's a very good cook. 2 weeks ago, we moved in together. Our place is a large, fully equipped kitchen, and my girlfriend was ecstatic about all the things that she can do. I was happy to see her so happy. However, in all of our excitement, I didn't realize how our food preferences can actually become a problem. You see, I didn't realize that she cooks and eats a lot of Indian food. Like, all the time. For the past year, whenever we've spent time at each other's apartments, she's always made me things like ramen, pasta, lasagna, tacos, soups, grilled cheese, etc. I figured that's what she normally ate. I have a few Indian American friends and they told me that they don't exclusively eat Indian food at home, so I thought it was the same thing with her. Yesterday, she was super excited to show me something and dragged me to the kitchen. There, she unveiled a whole drawer of spices. We're talking about 20 to 30 different types of whole, crushed, powder spices, neatly stored in glass bottles and labeled. I asked why she needed so many spices and she replied, "To cook Indian food, silly." I told her that I didn't like Indian food and she told me not to worry, she wouldn't force me to eat anything, that it's just for her meals and that she made separate meals for me. I asked her if she could simply not cook Indian food in our house at all because the smell is so pungent and if she'd cook regular food instead. She told me that Indian food is regular food to her and I'm going to have to get used to it. I insisted and she said that she'll only consider giving up cooking Indian food if I give up cooking up meat at home. She's vegetarian because she doesn't like the smell of the meat being cooked. I told her that it was unfair to ask because she never objected when I cooked meat at my apartment. She told me that she's only demanding that I give it up because I'm doing the same thing to her. I got quite mad and told her that she was being extremely unreasonable as I need meat. I work out a lot and I need protein, but she doesn't need Indian food all the time and she can order takeout if she craves it. She told me that restaurants are not very good where we live and it's unhealthy to eat takeout every day. We ended up arguing for a while and now we're not talking to each other. Am I the asshole for insisting that she doesn't cook with spices?
Am I the asshole for flipping out on my husband for canceling my job interview? In 2019, I could no longer work because of physical disabilities and no company wanted to hire me for the past couple of years. My husband said it's better that I stay home and not worry about working. I agreed and he's become the breadwinner, but then it's like a switch flipped. Chores were 50-50, but after I lost my job, they became 100% on me. Keep in mind the physical disabilities I developed. His excuse for not doing anything to help is that I stay home 24/7. I said that's not fair and he promised everything will be 50-50 once I start working again. I told him I would find a job and he laughed and said good luck. I vividly remember that. Am I the asshole for flipping out on my husband for canceling my job interview? I found a job that would have me work from home due to physical strains. I was so excited and felt capable again despite the struggle. I told my husband about the interview and he looked red in the face and said nothing. Well, 2 days ago, I found out my interview got canceled. My friend asked why I did that and I said I had no idea. My husband came home and admitted to canceling the interview. He said that this job has a lot of requirements and I didn't seem fit to be accepted there, so to spare me the heartache of being rejected, he canceled it. I flipped on him and said he probably did it because of the chores. He threw a fit about how unreasonable and selfish it was to consider a job without even speaking to him first. Am I the asshole for refusing to buy my stepdaughter a car like my daughter's? I have a 16-year-old daughter and about 7 years ago her dad and I divorced because he found out he was gay. Him being the only breadwinner and me being a housewife, he preferred to let us live in our house. He continued paying all our expenses and giving me money to maintain my lifestyle. 2 years later, I met my current husband and a year later we married. He moved in with me and my daughter and him and my ex are great friends. Also, as a wedding gift, he even gave me his half of the house. Now I own it in full. My husband has a daughter with his ex, so she lives with us half the time. The issue is that my ex pays for our daughter to go to an expensive school, buys her expensive gifts, and for her birthday bought her a $60,000 car. Am I the asshole for refusing to buy my stepdaughter a car like my daughter's? My daughter and her stepsister don't have the best relationship, mainly because my husband's ex hoped they would get back together and kept poisoning her. My daughter would share stuff with her until she kept ruining them on purpose. That was when my husband made a rule that they can't borrow from each other, and I stay out of it because she refuses to see me as a parent. My husband has a good job, but nothing close to what my ex earns, and since we decided the house is enough for my ex, our income is just what he earns. My stepdaughter's 16th birthday is coming up, and she asked for the same car that my ex gave my daughter. We refused, and she threatened my husband that she'd never talk to him again if she didn't get it. He's wavering, but I refused. $60K is under what he makes in a year, and it will drown us. Am I the asshole for telling people exactly why my girlfriend wasn't at my brother's wedding? First off, I'm a girl, and so is my girlfriend of 4 years. We're both mid-late 20s, share finances, live together, plan to marry, and buy a house, etc. This will be relevant later. When my brother sent out the invitations, only my name was on it, and I asked Dan, and he said that because of COVID, they're restricting numbers. Also that no one was getting a +1. Fair enough, no problem. Anyway, I get there on Saturday, and everyone has a +1. Even my cousin who's been casually seeing this guy for a couple weeks. It's obvious why. This isn't the first time my girlfriend's been treated differently, but it's the first time it's been so blatant. Am I the asshole for telling people exactly why my girlfriend wasn't at my brother's wedding? I'm furious, but I grit my teeth, smile, and get through the ceremony. At the reception, my family immediately notices my girlfriend's missing and asks about her. I was gonna say she was sick, but I said F it. I said she wasn't invited. Gee, I wonder why. I wasn't loud, but it was clear I was bitter, and shortly after, my brother and his new wife came storming after. She's sobbing, and he's whispering, shouting threats at me, so I left. Now my immediate family isn't talking to me except to yell at me, and the rest of my family isn't talking to them except to yell at them.
My mom insists it was a misunderstanding with the invites. And my dad wants me to apologize.
Am I the arsehole for telling a student I don't care? I teach 7th grade at a Catholic school. I don't teach all their classes, but I do teach math, religion, English, and social studies to my class. I have this student that I'll call Chrissy. She is a handful. She's a smart girl and usually does well on tests, but she is extremely dramatic. I have been having a lot of issues with her when it comes to late assignments. I do accept late work, but 10% is taken off each day late until they fail the assignment. Obviously, there are certain circumstances that students can turn in late assignments without penalty. Chrissy has been turning in assignments late all year and going on some sob story about why she couldn't get it done on time. I have been giving her full credit, but every time my patience is getting thinner. It's her grandma is sick, so she was visiting in the hospital. Her dog ran away, and she was out all day looking. Her uncle is sick in the hospital, her mum got stuck at work, so she had to spend all day babysitting her siblings, her dad got mad at her, which sparked an anxiety attack, and she couldn't do the homework. You get the picture. These are all excuses that she's used. There's even more. I feel bad as I think she's getting a lot more leeway than the other students. Today we had a pop quiz on a reading assignment from last week. This is a normal thing that we do on Mondays to test who read last week. After the quiz, Chrissy came up to my desk as the rest of the kids head to another class. So the grandma of her best friend growing up passed away. She was having a very rough time, so Chrissy basically spent the entire week with her after school and just couldn't get the reading done. She admitted to probably flunking the pop quiz and wanted to retake it later in the week. I looked at Chrissy, sighed, and just said, "Chrissy, I don't care. You do this all the time. It's not fair to the other students. You have to find a way to get your work done. The excuses are not going to work anymore." She started to tear up and plead with me. I told her if she's really having these serious issues so frequently, we can have her parents come in for a meeting to figure out what we can do. She insisted that wasn't necessary and she can't get her parents involved. I told her that's her only option. Either she gets the work done on time or we sit down with her parents. She left the room while yelling that people like me are the reason her generation has so many mental health problems because we don't understand their struggle. Am I the asshole for how I handled this? I really think I did the best I could.
Am I the asshole for not picking up my kids because my wife brought a dildo into my house? Throwaway because my 32 male wife, 29 female, and I both frequent Reddit, and I don't want to be in the doghouse more than I am. My wife and I have been married for 7 years and have 2 children together, who are boys 4 and 2. On the 14th, my wife went out shopping, and I assumed it was just normal Christmas shopping, since it's getting to that time of year. She was gone several hours, and the boys were at my mother's house for a few hours, as she lives pretty close. I was planning to go pick them up around dinner time, so I was relaxing until then. I had the day off, and my wife has been a stay-at-home mom since our oldest was born. When she got home from the mall, I asked what she had gotten, and walked over to look through the bags with her. In one of the bags, I saw a dildo, and I can't explain why, but it made me mad. I just didn't want that around my kids. It feels really inappropriate, and if they found it, what then? I told her she had to take it back to the store, and she said they had a no return policy. I said it wasn't even opened, and to at least try, but she wouldn't budge. So I put my foot down and told her that as long as that thing was in the house, our sons would be staying at their grandma's. She thought I was kidding, but I said I was dead serious. She said she'd leave to go get them herself, but I said I'd throw it away while she was out doing that if she did. Then my wife said she wasn't speaking to me until I go get the boys, and she told me to grow up. Now she's giving me the cold shoulder. I think she's the one who has to grow up if she thinks it's appropriate to have a dildo with kids around. I'm firm on this. My mother agrees with me, and the kids have a room there, so they're doing fine. So, am I the asshole?
One night, I was coming home late. A man got on the train. There was only one other person on the train besides this guy and myself. He sits across from me and leans forward. He then proceeds with the typical speech.
Hey girl, you got a boyfriend?
For some reason, I decided to engage him in this conversation rather than ignore him. He had crazy eyes and I didn't want to piss him off. His comments became increasingly inappropriate, that is, naming specific sexual acts he would do to me. I had no idea what to say and was starting to become afraid. Thankfully, the other person on the train decided to stand up for me and told him to back off. He told this guy to watch his manners when he spoke to a lady. Then he came and stood by my side until the creepy guy got off the train. I couldn't believe this kid stood up for me though. He was dressed like the typical 18-year-old gangster. He didn't even hit on me once the guy got off. He just said, "I'm so sorry you had to deal with that. There's no reason you should have to deal with that." He told me to be safe and got off at the next stop. That experience definitely proved to me that you shouldn't judge people on something as trivial as their clothing. I got on a mostly empty bus and sat down. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw someone get up, cross the aisle, and sit down in the seat behind me. Thought that was weird, but put it out of my mind. The bus starts moving. A few minutes later, I feel something brush my side. Look down. The dude who'd moved to sit behind me had reached around my seat to touch me. I turned around and gave him a WTF look. He sat back and muttered a quick apology. I shrugged it off as something odd, resumed staring at the window. Few minutes later, it happens again. I turn around and say loudly, "Keep your hands to yourself." Then I get up and move to a seat in the frontmost row. The bus stops to take on more passengers. Someone sits next to me. I do not look up to see who it is. Then I feel a hand on my knee. I look over and it's the creeper. So I shout, "Keep your hands to yourself." He mutters, "I ain't doing anything. It was an accident." A woman nearby has seen and heard the whole thing. She gets up and starts yelling at the guy. He starts yelling back. Bus driver notices and informs the dude that he'll be getting off at the next stop. Creeper is still shouting at that other lady. She lets him know that she'll be getting off to kick his ass. The driver makes him get off at the next stop. The woman follows. I like to think she beat his ass. She looked like she could have.
Am I the asshole for moving out, taking all my stuff, and not telling my roommates? I am 19 female and live with 3 other girls, 19 to 20, in an apartment on campus. Since it's an apartment on campus, it's a 2-bedroom with 4 people, so everyone shares a room. I share a room with B, C, and D also share a room. Between me and D, we furnished the whole apartment. I want to acknowledge that I am the bitchy roommate. I call everyone out on money, food, and cleaning. I'm a full-time college student and I work 40 hours a week on top of that, but I'm also the one that does the most chores. Since I'm the only one with a job, my roommates expect me to buy everything for the place. Toilet paper, garbage bags, etc., and they get mad that I ask them to pay me their share of. I really enjoy cooking, and it's a huge stress relief for me. For the first month of the semester, we did group groceries and group meals. It was cheaper, and we would be getting better meals. I figured out we could get 2 weeks worth of meals for around $30 to $40 each every 2 weeks. I make the grocery list and cook the meals. After about a month, B and C said they don't want to do group groceries anymore because it's too expensive. I now cook meals for me and D, we shop together and split the cost 50-50. I'm cooking food for me and D still, B and C expect me to make them food. I told them they didn't pay for food, so I'm not making them any. So now they go out to eat and get takeout every night, then complain that they don't have any money. B has a boyfriend. He comes over and spends the night too. I share a room with B. I've asked her to let me know before he comes over. She did for a month, but now she tells no one. He comes over and takes naps in her bed when she's not in the room and I'm trying to do homework. I've asked her not to have him spend the night if I'm intoxicated due to trauma. I woke up after drinking and he was in the room asleep without her. So I did not fall back asleep and was not happy. He comes over all the time now and she doesn't let us know. I'll jump in the shower in the morning when I walk back to my room in just a towel, and he'll be sitting on her bed while I try to get dressed. I'm in therapy, and because of the pandemic, it's virtual, so I do it from my own room. I can't help it if there is people home, but I've recently figured out that they've been listening to my therapy sessions. I'll talk about things in that session that I don't talk about with anyone else, but somehow C and B will bring it up later that night if it's something about the apartment and them. When I move out, they will have absolutely nothing in the apartment. No pots or pans, couch, a coffee table, a TV stand, all decorations, etc. I already cancelled my housing contract for next semester. It isn't going to be worth $2,000 for me. So I left for 2 weeks, packed up most of my stuff, and then left with it. I only told D that I was leaving for 2 weeks, so B and C have no idea where I am or most of my stuff. And honestly, I'm fine with it. Am I the asshole?